What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Somethin About Sports Podcast. This is your host once again, Leon Edwards, back with another episode. This one won't be a number episode or anything. This is just going to be kind of a little catch-up / preview for the Chiefs. So I'll combine week 1 and week 2 in this episode as far as the week 2 preview. But after this, I want to hop back into doing it kind of how we did last year. It seems like a lot of people enjoyed that, doing an individual preview and recap of each game each week. So we'll hop into that. If you guys didn't get a chance to listen to the last episode, we are doing videos now. So not every podcast will be videos, but right now it's fun to hop in here, and I've been able to kind of get things set up to do videos. So I'm excited to bring those, and I wanted to make sure I got some local content out on the video as well. So, yeah, we got videos going. I want to hop into talking about the Chiefs. I don't want this to be too long. I want it to be a quick hitter. So let's hop right into what we came here for. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Chiefs' dominant Week 1 victory over the Arizona Cardinals. The final score ended up being 44-21. And believe it or not, the crazy thing about that score is that while it sounds like a blowout in NFL fashion regardless, the game really wasn't even as close as the final score showed. The Kansas City Chiefs were absolutely dominant. They were the absolutely better team from start to finish. It was apparent from the first time they touched the football. Even with a couple of injuries, a couple of guys getting nicked up, including Patrick Mahomes, who's going to be fine. But even with those things, didn't really affect anything. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to be great this year, and that's something that I talked about coming into the season. This is a team that's on a mission. They've got a purpose now. They got another reason to be motivated on top of the things that they've already done. So, I think that this was a statement game for the Chiefs, and you could see it from the beginning. As soon as the Chiefs scored that first touchdown, you could see what the mentality would be. And I was watching the game with my wife at the time, and I looked at it and I told her, I think they're going to score 50 today. And, yeah, you guys that know her, you guys can ask her, but I looked at her after they scored that first touchdown and said the Chiefs are going to score 50 today, and they got damn close. They got pretty close, but they were on a mission, and they had something to prove, and I think they wanted people to know, like, it's the same old Chiefs. And I talked about that in my last podcast as well. That's going to be a mantra that I use this season, same old Chiefs, because I really, really think that that's what they want to be. That's really what they want everybody to understand, is that, we understand there's been some turnover. There's some guys that aren't here on this team anymore. But this is the same team that's been as dominant as it's been since Andy Reid showed up in town, since Patrick Mahomes took over the starting quarterback job. This is that same team. And I think the biggest takeaway from week 1 is that it's not going to matter what the names and faces are, as long as 15's in the huddle, and as long as Andy Reid's with the headset. You got a pretty good formula for success. And I think that we've seen that enough now to know that, to have expected what was going to happen. I think most of us should have known that. But just to pinpoint a few of the different things that went down in this game, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm just recapping this from memory. I did watch the game, but I didn't note any stats or anything like that. So if some of these stats are off, excuse me on that. I do know Patrick Mahomes' stat line. I believe his final stat line ended up being 30 or 31 for 39, 360 yards. 5 of them. At one point, he counted them up and told one of the Cardinals defenders, hey, 4 of them, count them up. But he ended up throwing 5 of them, 5 touchdowns, and he was locked in. Surprisingly, well, I guess maybe not surprisingly, because Vance Joseph has liked to do that before, but Vance Joseph really tried to heat Patrick Mahomes up. They sent a lot of pressure at him all day, and Patrick Mahomes is pretty much the best passer of all time by ratings and metrics against the blitz. So it's really not a good idea to do that, as the Cardinals learned pretty quickly and often in that game. Patrick Mahomes looked like the best player in football, which he is, and he came out looked like a guy with something to prove, a guy who was playing with fire and was ready to get this season going. And I'm excited to see where he goes with this year. I think he's going to have an MVP caliber year. And I talked about this in episode 19 as well. I think what's going to stand in the way of probably getting that MVP award is just that his MVP precedent has already been set. He set it for himself, and that's 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. And if you don't see him get back there, then it may be hard for him to it may be hard for him to win the vote enough to win the award. But he's going to have an MVP caliber season. He was awesome. This passing game is going to be great. That's something else I want to talk about as well. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, who looked like the clear number one receiver. Travis Kelce looked like Travis Kelce, looked like the clear number one weapon for this offense. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was efficient and made a big impact in limited touches. You had Isaiah Pacheco icing the game when it was out of reach. Jerick McKinnon, I thought, looked fresh, and I think he fits into Andy Reid's offense really well. He looks really, really good in this offense every time he's on the field, and that was no different on Sunday. I thought he looked good in the receiving game. He looked good as a blocker, and also the couple of times he got a chance to run the ball too. So I liked what I saw from this Chiefs offense. It looked like they were just a well-oiled machine, kind of coming right back into the next year and getting things going again. And that was the thing you wanted to see. You wanted to see them look like their selves. You didn't want to see a whole lot of differences. I think the biggest difference was just like not attacking that big play as much. The Chiefs didn't go after the big play. They didn't take as many shots. And that could be because the game was out of reach and they could pretty much kind of put to the test anything that they wanted to maybe pull out the next week, anything they wanted to throw on film for the Chargers to have to worry about and different things like that. And they could be saving some of those shot plays for the Thursday night game. But you didn't see a whole lot of that. You just saw Patrick Mahomes dialed in, methodical, breaking down the defense, orchestrating the offense. He had total control of the offense, and he dominated the football game. He was the best player on the field. And I think that's the biggest difference that you saw. You saw that he's continuing to grow as a quarterback, and you can see it in his demeanor. You can see it in his confidence, and you can see it in the throws he was making. And there was a couple of times where you could tell he anticipated something, and he made an anticipation throw, a throw that he determined he was going to make before the snap. And a couple of times it got put into trouble. But for the most part, I thought Patrick Mahomes played really, really well. No turnovers or anything like that as well. So I thought Patrick Mahomes played well. I thought the offense overall played well. And I'm excited to see kind of what that translates to into next week. But most of us thought that the offense was going to play well anyway. So I would say Patrick Mahomes, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all of those guys play big roles in this game, and I think are going to play big roles in this season, and guys we should be watching as the season progresses. And Jody Fortson with a touchdown as well, just continuing his touchdown dominance from the preseason. Glad to see him get back in the end zone in the regular season, and I think he'll be a bigger part of the offense than a lot of like national fans, a lot of casual NFL fans will know. And I think he'll be a name that sneaks up on a lot of people a lot of different times throughout this season for making an impact on the offense. And I think he'll do that this year. Moving to the defense. I thought that the Chiefs defense looked really good. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see Trent McDuffie for the whole game. He got injured with a hamstring injury, but he did make an impact. He didn't really get challenged by the Cardinals, which usually as a rookie cornerback that's playing a lot of snaps, if you're not challenged by another team, that means you're doing something right because they're going to try to attack you. And as you saw, once he got hurt and the Chiefs sent Jalen Watson out there to take his place and take a couple of reps, they went right after him. He made that great play as well. I thought the secondary looked really good. I thought Juan Thornhill looked good breaking on a couple of routes. I thought Justin Reed having to step in as the backup kicker, but also, his first game as a Chief, his first game in Steve Spagnuolo's defense and being the leader of that secondary. At least being paid to be that, have that role. And I thought that they looked solid. I thought the defensive line looked really, really good. I came into this season worried the most about the defensive line of anything else on this Chiefs football team. And I think I walked away from this game thinking that this defensive line can be okay. I think George Karlaftis is about as good as advertised. After one game, he did exactly what you would want to see him do for a rookie that's going to have a good year. And I thought he had a really good impact in his first week. Carlos Dunlap got a sack, which he's good for, 6, 7, hopefully 8 of those this year. But he got a chance to get his hands on the quarterback. Chris Jones just looked absolutely dominant. Us Chiefs fans, because Chris Jones has been if not the best, one of the best defensive players on our team for a long time. We know that it's not just about stats to really pay attention to the impact he's making on the football game. Chris Jones makes an impact in a lot of different ways, and this game was no different, with batted passes, with affecting the running game, with holding up blockers so other guys can make plays. You saw Chris Jones dialed in and dominant from snap one. And I think this defense is going to go as that defensive line goes. If you get the activity level, the pressure, the speed that you got out of this defensive line against a really, really fast and elusive quarterback in Kyler Murray, you get a performance like that from that defensive line, it's encouraging going forward. So I will say I definitely, my confidence grew a lot in that defensive line, and I'll be interested to see kind of as the season progresses, as they face bigger tests, how that continues to grow and how George Karlaftis specifically integrates himself into that defensive line. But as a whole unit, how Chris Jones leads that, what impact he has, how many times he can get the quarterback on the ground, what Frank Clark can contribute. I thought Frank Clark looked really fast, actually. Frank Clark looked good to me. He didn't make a whole lot of plays as far as in the stat sheet, but I thought he looked good and contained, and I thought he looked really fast, and I thought he looked like he had some juice. So good for Frank Clark getting back out there, some new beginnings this season as well. He's got a lot to play for, as does Chris Jones and a lot of other guys on that defense. So the defensive line probably stood out the most to me, but the linebackers I thought were good. I think that we're probably now at a point that we have our two main linebackers. We have Willie Gay. We have Nick Bolton. We have those guys that are every week are going to be out there. And if we're not talking about them, it's a good week because we know what they're going to bring to the table. We know that both of those guys are going to be sideline to sideline linebackers. They're going to make plays coming downhill. Willie Gay's going to be in passing lanes, making plays in the passing game. We know what to expect out of them. And when we're not getting those things, that's when we'll talk about them. This is one of those games where I thought they played fine. I really don't know. Anything that you're coming after for the Chiefs defense at this point is nitpicky. And I will say this, like I said before, I have not rewatched the game, so I didn't go in and actually study. If I did go study, I'm sure I would be able to find a couple of things here and there that probably could be shored up. But it'd be nitpicky to really harp on something that was negative in this game with how dominant and suffocating the Chiefs were to the Cardinals from the coin toss. So just a great team win, a dominant win, puts a lot of those questions to rest, and we can kind of get past the whole Tyreek Hill offseason storyline and start talking about this Chiefs team and their journey to being a Super Bowl team, because they have just as good of a chance as the last Chiefs team to do it. And you know the reason why. 15's in the huddle. Big Red's got the headset. As long as those two things are constant in Kansas City, we can be confident that this team is going to be just fine. All right. So enough of that. I know I'll get into a lot more specifics and everything after this Chargers game. I didn't really even seek out getting the film for the Cardinals game. I haven't really watched too much on the Chargers either. So it's not going to be as in-depth. It's not going to be as analytical as you guys do get from me sometimes. But we'll hop into that next week. We'll get that going and get this season kind of getting back to some normalcy and kind of how we want to do Chiefs coverage. So we'll get that going next week. But for this week, we'll be talking and hanging out. You guys get a chance to just watch me wing it a little bit, and then we'll have some more fun stuff coming next week too. Anyways, so this Chiefs-Chargers game, highly anticipated matchup. I feel like we're spoiled getting this matchup in week 2 already, and I think this is going to be a hell of a game. Last season, when the Chargers came to Arrowhead, it was a hell of a game. The Chargers have one of the best young players in the sport, and Justin Herbert, a guy who's made his impact quickly, and it's easy to see when watching him play. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the game for a long, long time. And, of course, the Chiefs have the best player in the game. So whenever you get two talents at the quarterback position facing off like that, especially young guns and guys that are, being highly touted as potential players with potential to be some of the best players of all time, Patrick Mahomes' case, that's kind of already solidified. But anyways, whenever you get that, you have a highly anticipated matchup. But then when you add into the fact of what the AFC West did this offseason, it's been talked about ad nauseum. But even just the Chargers, from their perspective, this is a team with Justin Herbert going into his third year, his second full year as a starter. Austin Eckler, who came off of being one of the most prolific running backs in the NFL last year, he's flanked by two elite receivers and a third receiver who's really, really good and that probably could be elite if he had more opportunity. But you're talking about Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Josh Palmer. Keenan Allen, of which, who won't be playing in this game. He got an injured hamstring in that Week 1 game against the Raiders. He won't be playing in this game, which for the Chiefs is kind of a balance because the Chiefs will be without Trent McDuffie most likely in this game as well. They're both dealing with their own hamstring injuries. And so it's kind of a balance there, but the Chiefs won't have to deal with Keenan Allen, who over his Diego and now Los Angeles has done a lot of damage to the Chiefs in a lot of matchups between these two teams. So I'm sure nobody on the Chiefs is crying about not having to play against Keenan Allen. But I know the Chargers will miss him dearly, but they do have a really, really good player in Josh Palmer. Those Chiefs fans that see Keenan Allen's not playing, you see Keenan Allen's not playing and you assume that it's just going to be a cakewalk and the Chargers don't have anything. I got two things to tell you. Number one, they have a dude at quarterback. Just about anybody you put out there that can play football, he's going to make it happen. They got one of those guys. So we're going against the Chargers. Anytime we have these matchups, you can scrap all of that. You can scrap who's going to be out there. You can scrap all of that stuff. They got one of those dudes, point blank, and we got to deal with it for the next however many years he's there. If you are a Chiefs fan and you're still in denial, put it to rest. Justin Herbert can play. All right, so the second reason, they have really, really good players over there. Like I said before, Mike Williams, elite wide receiver, 6'4", physical specimen, can dominate in many, many different ways and has dominated in many different ways throughout the course of his career. And Keenan Allen, we've talked about, he won't be playing in this game. But Josh Palmer is a really, really good receiver, one of the best number 3 receivers in the NFL. He could go to just about any team in the NFL right now and be their number 2 receiver. He's that good of a player. So the cupboard's not bare just because they don't have their number 1 guy. They have a lot of talent there. They went out and got Gerald Everett, an athletic tight end, who's given the Chiefs problems in the past for other teams. Another guy who, can give you fits. And just last week, you saw Justin Herbert have a prolific passing game and the offense be fine. And neither Mike Williams nor Josh Palmer really had an impact on the game. And Keenan Allen didn't finish that game. You had guys like DeAndre Carter and Gerald Everett, who aforementioned Gerald Everett, that you're seeing those kind of guys getting involved. So, like I said before, scrap all of that stuff. You got Mahomes versus Herbert, everything else out the window. This is going to be one of those games. And I'm excited to watch it, but that's the biggest thing to know about the Chargers. They got Justin Herbert. He's taking a step forward. You got that defense that they've drastically improved over the offseason. They went out and acquired Khalil Mack to flank with Joey Bosa to form one of the best pass rushing tandems in the NFL. You got J.C. Jackson out there on the outside to be an elite wide receiver, an elite cornerback who, he can travel with number 1 receivers. He can take away a side of the field. Against the Chiefs, it'll be interesting to see with teams that are making that decision. I'll be interested to see what they decide to do when they're playing the Chiefs this year, because the Chiefs, while I think Juju Smith-Schuster will end up being the number 1 receiver for this team, I don't necessarily know if that's going to culminate in him getting that number 1 receiver treatment or being talked about that way. I think it'll be more of this Chiefs offense is really good. They have a lot of pieces, but when you look at the numbers at the end of the year, Juju has the most targets. He has the most catches, touchdowns. I don't know. We'll have to see about touchdowns. I think he's a really good red zone threat as well, but we'll just have to see how the Chiefs want to use him. We didn't see a lot of red zone usage week 1, so we'll see what that looks like. But he'll be the clear receiver at the end of the year. But I don't think a team like the Chargers with a big money guy like J.C. Jackson who can follow around, I don't know if it's worth it to follow around or if you just want to kind of control the side of the field. And especially when you have a safety in Derwin James who you're going to want him following Travis Kelce around. They think he's the Kelce stopper. I tend to think that there's some truth there. I think Derwin James is a very special football player, and I think without injuries, he's probably already built up a better Hall of Fame type resume. I think he's one of the best college football players I've ever seen as far as a secondary player, and I think him and Jalen Ramsey both at Florida State, they were like back to back with one another, and I remember watching those two guys there and watching every week because both of them, Jalen Ramsey was playing both safety and corner. Derwin James was doing the same thing, much more safety, much more hard hitting, of course, which is why he transitioned into safety in the NFL. But one of the best talents at the position I've ever seen. So definitely excited to see kind of how the Chargers match up with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will probably see Derwin James matched up with Travis Kelce. We'll probably see that matchup, and they'll see if they can take it away. I just think that Patrick Mahomes takes the smart route. Derwin James is a hell of a football player. If he's going to follow Travis Kelce around and you have other options of guys who can get open, why force it? Why throw it in harm's way to a guy who can change the trajectory of a game in one play when you don't have to? I don't necessarily know if that means he's going to just completely shut Travis Kelce down, but it may be in the best interest of the Chiefs to go in a different direction in this game. So I'll be interested to see how the Chargers, with their new look defense, with their improved defense, defend the Chiefs and how the Chiefs respond to that and what that looks like for the Chiefs offense. And I think that's something that, unlike last year, this year going into every game, that'll be a legitimate conversation. We could be looking at each game and say, this is a game the Chiefs could go in and just dominate on the ground. This is a game the Chiefs can dominate in the intermediate. This is a game where they'll just dissect them with little dinks and dunks here down the field. This is a game that you can get Travis Kelce loose. This is a game Juju can get loose. MVS can get some big plays this game. McCole can get some big plays this game. And I haven't even said Sky Moore's name yet. And Sky Moore's going to make plays for this offense as well. And I think that's the biggest difference for this team. I don't think the biggest difference is whether the offense will be good or how good they are. This is going to be a top 3 NFL offense again. It's going to be a top 3 offense. I don't think that matters. I think what is going to be the difference is how they get it done and what it looks like week to week and what that means for, how other teams prepare for them. I think it'll make the Chiefs much, much harder to prepare for. So I'm excited to see what that looks like going forward as the season goes too. So I do want to talk about a few players I'll be watching in this game, some guys that I think have a chance to make statements in this game, but also continue conversations about them or whatever else. So the first one is the biggest one for me, Orlando Brown Jr. This is why we're in the situation we are with him. Games like this, you want to see Orlando Brown Jr. play like one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. This is the first test he has this season to earn that money he wants. And I'm always one of the advocates for guys getting paid what they're worth. I think guys should get paid what they're worth. In Orlando Brown's case, what we saw out of him his first year with the Chiefs, I don't think it warrants getting the type of money he's looking for. But he has a chance with one of the best pass rushing tandems in the league. Week 2 of the season, you're probably going to be missing one of your guys on the right side of the offensive line in Trey Smith, who also got dinged up in that first game. Be the leader of this team, dominate against those guys, and earn money. He's got a chance. This is money earning season for Orlando Brown. This is his first chance right here. That's what I'm watching for. The biggest thing I'm watching for is to see how Orlando Brown handles Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, and I think these games will go a long way towards what that contract situation looks like at the end of the season. Clyde, another guy who his role on this team has been in question. It's been the offseason was a little uncertain for Clyde this offseason, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I think he started off the season really well, but he's got to continue to show he's going to be able to make an impact in a lot of different ways, and he's going to make big plays. And in this game where I've already talked about this secondary being much improved, I've talked about them having a guy who they can follow Travis Kelce around with. it's going to be important to find mismatches, and one of the mismatches you may be able to find against this Chargers defense is at the second level. And if Clyde can win some matchups there, if Clyde can get loose, that could be huge for this offense and opening up what else they can do downfield and what else they can do with Travis Kelce. So I'll be interested to see if, number one, if the Chiefs are going to use him in that way to kind of loosen up that defense and how Clyde responds to that. George Karlaftis and Chris Jones both. I'll be watching the D-line as a whole. I'm really, really interested to see how this D-line shakes out because I think Brett Veach is taking a gamble going into the season with the D-line as is. I think that, they're really – what I think is doing is putting a lot of confidence in George Karlaftis and saying, hey, we think this guy's the guy, and he's going to be really good for us, and he's going to play a big role on this team. So I'll be watching him, seeing how he responds to a step up in competition, to a step up in the atmosphere, first home game, all of those things going against one of the best quarterbacks in football. I'll be interested to see how he looks. He looked the part in week 1. Let's see that continue in week 2. And Chris Jones, continue his dominance. The Chargers know him well. Every team in the AFC West knows him well. Continue that dominance. Help Karlaftis out. I think George Karlaftis and Chris Jones on the same side of the field was really, really good in week 1. Let's see that again in week 2 and see what kind of devastation they can cause for this Chargers offense. And then the last guy I'll be watching, Juju Smith-Schuster. I talked about him already. I think he's going to be the top receiver for this team, and I think games like this are the games that are going to prove it. I think we see him have a really big game. We see him have a lot of involvement in a lot of different ways, too. The thing that a lot of people, I think, when Juju first signed here, I was a big, big fan of the sign. I was a person who, even the year before, I've been huge on trying to get Juju Smith-Schuster in Kansas City because of all of the other things he brings to the table. He's a really good wide receiver. He's a really good route runner. He can get open. He can do all those things, but he's physical. He's a blocker. He's a team player kind of guy, too. He's really one of those enforcer kind of guys. He's one of the guys that brings attitude. He brings attitude on the field, and I think that games like this are the types of games that are going to show it, making big blocks, being involved in running plays, breaking plays off, breaking off of routes when Patrick Mahomes is scrambling around. I think we see Juju emerge as the season progresses into that number one guy for Patrick Mahomes, and I think the games like this are going to build that chemistry. So I think we see him have a really good game, especially with the whole Derwin James thing and him following Kelce around. Chiefs will probably keep it away from him as much as they can and get that thing to Juju, MVS, and other guys. And I think that just culminates in Juju being the top guy in the passing game for the Chiefs this game. So I'll be watching that as well. As far as predictions, I think the Chiefs do win this game. The Chiefs have a chip on their shoulder. They lost to the Chargers at home last year, and then they had to go to their place and win it in overtime. And I don't think they like the Chargers thinking they have a lead on them or a beat on them. So I think the Chiefs will defend home field. It's the home opener. It'll be very electric in Arrowhead. There'll be a lot of fans there, a lot of raucous behavior, a lot of noise, and a lot of fun. So I think the Chiefs will win this game. I think we see them get close to 40. I don't think they quite get to 40. I think we're probably looking at like a 38-32 finish. Kansas City wins it, not quite comfortably, but comfortably enough that it's not like a nail biter at the end of the game. So I'm excited to see how this shakes out. It's the first of a really, really intriguing and fun AFC West slate and start of the season for the Chiefs. So let's get this thing going. Oh, MVP. I didn't say an MVP. I guess I kind of talked up Juju, so let's just pick him. We'll go Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, will be the MVP of this game from a stats perspective. If the Chiefs offense has a really, really good day, the true MVP could be Orlando Brown and how he handles Khalil Mack and Bosa. So I'll be looking at those two guys, but I don't want to cheat and hedge my bets. I make one pick, and it'll be Juju. I think it'll be clear, and everybody be happy with that. So you guys know where to find me. I'll be recapping the game not too long after and getting some things going for post game and all of that stuff as well, and trying to find the film so I can actually rewatch this one. So I'll be coming with a recap of this Chiefs Chargers game at some point over the weekend. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate your patience. Continue to look for the video content. The audio content will still be out there. So wherever you've been listening, if you want to keep listening, the audio will still be getting posted the same way. The video content is going to go on YouTube to start. I'll try to figure out some other ways to maybe get it on other platforms. But doing the whole podcast on videos, really, really long videos. So YouTube's probably going to be the best bet. But we'll see. We may have some other options as well. But we'll get into that. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it every time. And I'll be coming with more content. See you guys then. Until next time.